Today we are hanging out with Girish from Girish and the Chronicles. Girish, how are you doing today?
Doing great, actually. Day before was my birthday. Yesterday was my anniversary. So yeah, it was like 2 days fun packed, So just like uh, you could say I'm settling down today.
Yeah, I got to rest that off. That would have been some big and very worthy reasons to be celebrating.
Yeah, man, the whole world's in turmoil right now, and it's just everything's so crazy, right? So might as well find some moments, to just enjoy and like be happy, I guess.
No, exactly. Got to capitalize on those moments, if only for the levity.
Yeah.
But you guys have, yeah, lots of things to celebrate. First thing I want to talk about is when I yeah, got the offer to interview you and start off, jumping, doing the research, try and, figure out just what is Girish and the Chronicles. And of course, the first thing that comes up is that you were on America's Got Talent.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You played a cover of Adele's Set Fire to the Rain, which looks like it's creeping on something like 3.8 million views. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, that was like quite unexpected. I still remember receiving a message from someone, one of the producers on Instagram, like saying that, would you like to be a part of America's Got Talent? I was like, this must be some sort of a hoax or something. I was like, and it took me a couple of weeks and months to get familiar with them, and then I was quite convinced. So this is for real. And for a change, like we were just kind of invited. You could call it as like a wild card entry or something, but it worked out well for us. Choosing an Adele song, converting it to a very 80s our style of music, which it was a lot of fun. And it helped us reach out to a lot of people out there, especially the younger generation, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been a wild amount of exposure all at once. And you also have just recently released that song as a single. Have you heard anything from Adele herself? Has she given you any feedback about your rendition?
No, not at all. I've heard she anyway is not so too much into the limelight kind of stuff. I don't know if she's even heard it, but I do remember the producers telling me that Adele personally gave us the permission to perform that song on AGT. So that was a pretty big deal, I think.
Well, if she's not doing it publicly, hopefully she's back home rocking out in her bedroom, throwing up horns and
Let's hope
windmilling her
so.
hair.
Yeah.
Now, also with your America's Got Talent experience, obviously you got to perform in front of judges and personalities like Simon Cowell, Howie Mandel, Sofia Vergara. But fuck those clowns. I don't care about them. You got to meet Terry Crews. What was that like?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Terry Crews was like he totally filled us up with a lot of energy before heading to the stage. I was like we were all like, okay, the audience was really loud, and we were like, okay, man, okay, this is happening. And then we're about to enter the stage, and Terry's there, like, hey guys, how are you feeling? And I'm like, whoa, that's a big man, like giving us a lot of encouragement. Like it was awesome, yeah. At first we were like really kind of we have no clue, because we're not into all these reality shows and all that. And so it was just like really really new to us, the whole thing. And but as soon as we like, as soon as Nag started the hi-hats, and then bang, it just felt like the first song of a gig or a concert. It's like, okay, everyone's an audience. No one's like above anyone else. Like, let's just do our thing. So it felt like the first song of a concert, the opening song. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, just sink straight into your comfort zone. You know what you're there to do, rock and roll. And yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
the crowd really did get into it.
Yeah.
So you hail from Sikkim. Is that the correct way to pronounce that?
Yes, yes, that's the correct way.
Which is Well, look, just to preface a little, I personally don't have a passport. I've never traveled anywhere outside of Australia, but I do love me some geography. So when I
Oh
hear of
yeah,
a
me
place
too.
that I'm not too familiar with, I'm like straight on the maps and checking out and the lay of the land. And yeah, it's a very mountainous region. It's kind of, neighboring Nepal and
Yep,
Kathmandu. I was just wondering, what
it
was it
is.
like for you growing up there?
Yeah, so basically the place I grew up in it was like we were all inside this little bubble, and it it feels like we had no clue about, the rest of the world, growing up in a neighborhood that was still, in fact, my dad used to be a teacher in one of the schools, so we used to live in a quarter that the school gave him. So they gave it to all the employees and teachers, right? So that area itself was again, quite far away from the rest of Sikkim, you could say, So the only exposure to the outside world was like going to the school and then, coming back, meeting your friends. And that's where all of this, the whole music journey started, you could say, Although our mother is a singer as well, so we had the music thing going like a lot in the family actually. So uh, but basically at around maybe we were like in our early teens, the classmates kind of start handing over you cassettes of Iron Maiden, Eagles. It starts with Eagles out there. It used to start with Eagles, Hotel California out there. If you can play that song on the guitars, then you're like you can be respected a little bit. So it all starts with that. So eventually we, started getting cassettes by bands like Iron Maiden, Bon Jovi, Skid Row, Guns N' Roses, and all these bands. And like, even though everything was very different from the rest of India, because the cities on the other hand, like, even the school bands and the college bands, or even the bands who are planning to go professional, it was way different in the cities. They would get like a lot of exposure from the very start. They would always have a upper hand, compared to these hill stations and stuff, So when we started our band in school, it was like, okay, nobody else would have known about us except for that area, So, but yeah, it was more about nature. It was about mountains. It was about rivers. It was about, playing football in the grass fields, That's the kind of growing up we had, yeah, basically, more than anything.
Yeah, sounds like a beautiful place. And
It
even
is, yeah.
while you're, living, as you said, within this bubble, within a bubble, you still find rock and roll and you still find the Eagles and Iron Maiden. It has its way of
Yeah,
penetrating through the layers to still get to
yeah, yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what the bubble, you're still an angry teenager inside your heart, I guess, no matter where you are.
So yeah, I saw that you and Yogesh both have the same surname. So
Yeah.
brothers.
He's my younger brother, yes.
So that
So we
explains
grew up together. We grew up learning music together. Everything we've done is like being together, yeah.
so that explains how you found two members of the band. How did the others
Yeah.
join?
Yeah, it's quite a long story, but it was around 2009. So I was like, for about 2 to 3 years, I was like just on a journey to explore the world and also explore myself here. So I was in Nepal for a year. I was in New Delhi for a few months, and then another city called Gurgaon. So I was just trying to make sense of it all, because being in a place like Gangtok, Sikkim, you would have no idea about the music scene or how you go about it, because no other band or artist had ever attempted, doing something like this at that time. And so, yeah, I was just trying to find answers, you could say. It was like kind of a self-training experiment. So, yeah, by the time I came back home in 2009, Yogesh was also studying his sound engineering. He had come for a vacation, and he said, "Why don't you record your first single?" So that's how I recorded Angel. And I was also performing at this a venue named Cafe Live and Loud in Gangtok. It's still there. And so Yogesh would just play some lead guitars. It was like an unplugged duo kind of a thing. And eventually he had to leave to continue his studies. And that's when Nags, our drummer, eventually Suraj, also the guitarist, they joined in. They said, "Hey, we're gonna join you." But we had performed together before I headed for my journey. you know. So we kind of knew each other. We had jammed with each other. We we were all comfortable with each other, performing together on stage. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started back in 2009. So really, I have like really uh, shortened the whole story, you could say.
So you can save it for the autobiography when you write it.
Yeah.
I know you obviously grew up in one of the smaller, populated areas of India, but ultimately, what, 1.5 billion people ish
Oh yeah.
in that country. And yeah, how out of all those billions of people, you find and connect like with the right, similarly
Mhm.
minded souls to embark on a very non-traditional rock and roll journey. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's crazy out here because even if it's a small population that listens to rock and metal, it's a large number, you could say, percentage wise. Yeah. So yeah, we and when we started going out and performing and participating in competitions and festivals back in the day, what happened was the whole scene was about either like fusion, progressive, or some metalcore. These kind of genres were like quite big at that time. We're talking about like late 2000s, and lots of extreme metal happening around, and lots of blues, but nobody was kind of doing anything like Guns N' Roses or Skid Row or the whole 80s vibe. And we were like, we didn't know much about the scene, but we just knew how to do that like really well. So when we entered the scene, we were like kind of a fresh sound, you could say, even though it was an old sound, but it was like quite fresh at that time. Okay, no one's doing that. A lot of people kind of immediately took notice, and it was good for us, you could say.
Well, you've got an absolutely phenomenal voice, and it just sort of lends itself so well to that genre. I mean, I'm sure you could rip in many other styles as well, but yeah, I think that's the one for you.
Yeah, no matter what I do, people are always going to relate me to that style of singing, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I did spend a lot of time, practicing this kind of genre, I guess. Yeah.
Well, time definitely well spent. So with the Indian, heavy metal, alternate rock and roll scene, like when, you think towards that part of the world and that music, sort of the only band really of late that's kind of, or ever really has sort of come out is really been Bloodywood recently,
Yeah.
which are doing some amazing things. But
Yeah.
obviously, from what you're saying, there is a fair few bands out there playing different genres of
Mhm.
metal. Who do you gig with? Who else would you recommend checking out if people did want to discover more of this style of music from India?
Oh, there are so many bands, I'd start from a band named Parikrama, which was like, you could say they were like one of those early bands from the late 80s who kind of established the whole rock scene to kind of what it is. And another band that started actually came out with the first English rock um, album was a band named Rock Machine, and they later changed their name to Indus Creed. So Indus Creed has some amazing albums, a lot of alternate and experimental vibes, like from the early 80s, for early 90s, sorry. But when they were called Rock Machine, they were like kind of very similar to the whole bands like Europe. bands like that. And even I discovered them quite late, especially the Rock Machine, half of them. And I was like, whoa. So there was a lot of great stuff happening in India. So in fact, at that time, they were telling me the whole thing started with Europe visiting Mumbai in the 80s. They did this huge concert, and in the Street Rock Machine, they were like the opening band, and that's how they kind of, tapped into that sound and stuff. I think that's what I heard. Yeah, so in the Street Parikrama, and from the modern new bands, the top of my head, like there are some really not so well-known bands from the whole hair metal or glam metal style of rock. There is this young new band named Fire in the Rodeo. I think they have one album. They came out with an album last year, and I think it's a really good album. What they've done. I think people who like this genre should definitely check them out. And there is another band called Guns from Countryside. They're also from Sikkim, and they're more into the whole grungy, a little rougher style of, alternate rock. Yeah. And yeah, so many bands, man. Just a few of them are kind of coming out with albums, and there is another band from uh, the southern part of India named Chaos, if you're into thrash metal and all that. So
Yeah, wicked.
yeah, I'm kind of like, even I'm getting jumbled up in my head, man. They're gonna like curse me now. Like, how could you forget me?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot, but you've definitely, given us a few different, avenues to go down and start checking out. And I'm sure once,
Oh yeah,
oh
sorry,
yeah,
Cryptos. Cryptos is a band that you should definitely check out if you're into 80s heavy metal. Yeah, they kind of they're one of those bands that started touring Europe, and Cryptos is one band they should definitely visit Australia. I don't know if they have already, but yeah.
or maybe you might be able to, yeah, hook them up and drag them here with you the next time you come.
Oh yeah, would love that. Yeah, it's a perfect match.
Aside from coming to Australia, which you're going to be doing like very soon, like next week, you've also been able to, tour around a fair bit of the rest of the world. Yeah, what amazing, eye-opening, mind-blowing experiences have you had with touring the world so far?
Yeah, it was like just AGT itself was quite an experience. But if you're talking about like the real side of touring, the first time we performed in European continent was in Switzerland. That was like our opening, concert out there, and this was in 2021. And it was like really amazing how the people kind of, because they had no clue what to expect, because they had been told there's an Indian band, rock band coming to perform, and we were performing before Nazareth. It was like people are like, okay, what are these dudes gonna do? Like Indian, they will have an impression, right? There must be some sitar, some tabla, stuff like that, maybe some classical stuff going on. But we just went there and we just played some good old rock and roll, and was like, okay, they're our own homeboys. We were all like instantly connected. People just, it was like kind of it just proved that, it's all about just playing good music, performing well, having a great time on stage more than anything. People just want to have a good time at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, definitely what it is all about. But yeah, so that then brings you to now coming and touring Australia. I said you're going to be here next week. You're going to be touring with Shotgun Mistress. Is there
Oh yeah.
anything in particular that you're keen and excited to see and check out while you're here in Australia?
Yeah, like even I'm like quite a geology guy. I would love to see the Uluru. I think it's called the Uluru,
Yep.
the monolith. I really want to see that. I don't know if I'll be able to. I don't know if I'll find the time, but yeah, anything related to geology and stuff like that. And of course, some of the wildlife. which we grew up watching on Discovery Channel and stuff, right? It's like I'm excited about those kind of stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Apart
awesome. Well,
from visiting the music clubs and all. Yeah.
yeah, Uluru is pretty much smack bang right in the middle of Australia, so it can be a difficult place to get to, and
Oh, I
certainly
see.
more than a few hours drives to get there. You got to maybe plan a
Oh,
couple of
damn.
days if you're going by road.
Okay.
Uh, Maybe you could private charter a
Okay.
little plane out there. And it depends how flush with cash you are.
Yeah, yeah. We're making $1 million every show, so yeah, why not?
Just load it up with champagne. Let's go.
All right.
But otherwise, yeah, I
Nice.
hope you have an
Great,
amazing time while you are here. And it's been awesome chatting with you today, Garish.
great talking to you too, man. Thanks.